Hey my good friends, Sam Haymart with Test Driven TV. Today we're test driving the 2023 Kia Telluride SX Premium all-wheel drive X-Line. It's a mouthful. It's a lot, and it is a lot. It's nearly fully loaded, so I'm going to show it to you inside and out. We're going to take it for a drive, and then I'm going to tell you what I really think. So I told you what it was. This is a Kia Telluride SUV. It's a 3-row. This is their top of the line in terms of what you can get from Kia. It's the largest crossover SUV they offer, and it's just one trim grade down from being the most fully loaded. As tested, we're pricing out here at $54,000 and some change. It's got a few options on it, like this paint, wolf gray. It actually looks like a flat color, but it is a very soft pearl, therefore it costs extra. And so looking at the Telluride, they've been very popular. People are paying well over sticker for these things for quite some time. They're very popular. It's a good selling vehicle for Kia. And if you just look at it from a curb appeal standpoint, it's baller, man. I mean, it looks like a very expensive luxury vehicle. And 2023, with this trim grade, we've got some unique touches up front, unique fascia, and it's had a bit of a facelift since it first came out some years ago. On this trim grade, we've got 20-inch wheels, and if you go for the Pro, which is a more off-roady version, it's going to have smaller wheels. Here, this is kind of street, going with that baller theme. You can see that the trims that would normally be chrome are sort of a satin black finish, and I like that. It looks very classy, especially with this color. At the back, you have a power opening hatch, a new emblemology for Kia in the recent year or so, and down below in the rear bumper, you can see a nicely finished exhaust tip. Overall, it's a good-looking vehicle that's got a lot of swagger. The interior of the Telluride is really where I think most people are going to be most impressed, and just look at it, you can see why. From a design standpoint, this is just extremely well done. It's very pleasing to the eye. The quality materials in here is very good, and the quality of the switchgear is very good. And here in this particular trim grade, with everything that's here, almost every creature comfort known to man that you would expect out there is here. I'm sitting in Napa leather seats in this gorgeous saddle color, which contrasts nicely with this gray, well, it's fake wood, but it's very well done fake wood, along with satin silver trims. Now, these seats are reasonably comfortable. They are heated and ventilated here in the front, and I do find that sitting in them all day does work out pretty well. There's good adjustment range, and I haven't really had anything to complain about. I was able to get my seating position right where I wanted it. Tilt telescoping steering wheel, though it is manual, again, right where I want it. Nice switchgear on it, and then ahead of me, the dash on this is the Hyundai Kia dual screen layout with a digital screen for the instrument cluster. That is fully customizable. If you change up the drive modes, that's going to give you a different look and a layout for each one of those, and it just works really well. Every Kia and Hyundai that I've tested with this layout, I really did like a lot. The center stack, hard controls for the infotainment system, and down below that, hard controls for the HVAC. And down on the center console, there is a cool little nook here for your phone or whatever you want to put down there, along with all of the ports that you'll ever need. And then coming back, cup holders off to the side, always a good location, so you can have tall cups. They're not going to get in the way of the shifter, which here is a traditional shifter, my favorite. And then behind that is the controller for the drive modes and the four-wheel drive, all-wheel drive lock. More buttons behind that. Storage in here is actually quite generous. I would say 2 rectangular tissue boxes can fit in there, and then there of course is a tray on top for smaller things, so you don't have to dig all the way down into the bottom. All of this is well laid out, a lot of storage. There's pockets on the side of the console and huge map pockets in the doors. Also optioned here is the 2 separate sunroofs, a conventional sunroof up front with a shade, and then in the back, huge panoramic roof that covers both the second and the third rows back there. That is pretty cool. The second and the third row of the Telluride are very roomy. That's one of its big benefits in this class, is it's got a lot of space. It's big. And what I've got here are two captain's chairs, and the seating height is very good, and the adjustability is good. I've got fore and aft adjustments here, and this does have a seat back rake adjustment as well. And of course, my favorite, the armrest. I love those for a long trip. And so the comfort level is pretty good. They are firm, but they're comfortable. There's a center aisle to get through to the third row seat, and of course they tumble and fold forward to get to that third row seat. And for the most part, you can see back there that bar is in the way. There's a lot of space back there. Real adults can sit in that third row, but I will share that that bar is there to sort of make a point. That is for covering the cargo compartment if that third row is down, but there's nowhere to put it when the third row's up. The only reason it's in the car is because I didn't want to have to take it out and go put it in my garage someplace because I wanted that third row up. When you have the third row up, there is no space in that back cargo area. It's too narrow to actually put that. There's no dedicated stowage space for it back there, which is kind of a little bit of a design flaw in my opinion, but not a deal killer. I just have it right there in that position right now because I didn't really have anywhere to put it during the course of our shoot today. Just kind of a weird thing. So there it is. But it is a roomy third row, and behind that third row, reasonably good storage, but if you want, all of these seats can be folded flat, and a pretty generous cargo area back here at that. Spare tire is located underneath the vehicle, so there is a good sized spare tire, which is always good with an SUV. There are a good number of amenities back here. The aforementioned panoramic sunroof, very cool. And there are plugs back here on the rear of the console, a 12-volt plug, and there also is a AC outlet, so you can plug in a laptop or something like that. On the sides of these seats, there are USB ports so that you can plug in there. And vents, I'm always about the rear AC vents, and here they're up in the ceiling, as is the control panel for that. So it's mounted up here instead of down low on the console, but you've got plenty of air back here for the rear passengers, even the third row. I'm very impressed with this interior. The only weird thing is that bar in the back that doesn't work if you're using the third row. Outside of that, the design, the execution, the materials, the quality, the comfort, every part of this interior is firing on all cylinders. This interior gets 5 out of 5 stars. The infotainment system here is Kia Hyundai's corporate dual screen layout, a large screen here in the center for all of the feature content that is offered out there right now. It's got navigation, connected services. It is a subscription. Not one of my favorite things when they start making features that you're going to want on here, something you have to pay extra for every month. You just bought the car for 54 grand, but the menu layouts are pretty good, and overall I'm happy with it. The sound quality from the Harman Kardon audio system is fabulous. My only complaint about it is that every time you start the car, it always starts with a home screen, and if you want your radio stations or any other thing that you normally look at, you always have to switch to it every time you start the car. It's annoying. I want it left right where it was when I shut the car off. I like to have my stations up at all times, and every time I get in the car, I have to tell it radio. That's what I want to look at. And so there are a few issues there. The other thing I don't like about this system is the fact that some of the feature content here, the connected services, the nav and whatnot, are subscription based. Kind of an insult to me if I just spent 54 grand for this thing to then be told, well, you're going to have to spend, more on a subscription for some of those features. So everything's great except for those few little things. This system gets 4 out of 5 stars. All right, let's take this thing for a drive. So we're out here on my favorite country road. It's a nice noisy pavement, got some curves in it, so it's a good way to sort of ring this thing out. So this is built on a car-based crossover architecture, which means it's not a body-on-frame SUV. It's got a transverse mounted front engine, and this does have all-wheel drive, but it does default to front-wheel drive most of the time. It has a pretty rudimentary basic chassis, McPherson struts up front and a multi-link suspension at the back. It does, however, have unique rear suspension in that it's got dampers that can sort of self-level, and that's helpful for when you're towing. This does have a reasonably good towing capability. And so when you load this thing down, you put a trailer on it, it can help level this back out as you go along. So that said, road noise, not too bad. I would say class average on our 70-mile-an-hour test. This rates decibel-wise at 60.6, and that's literally dead nuts average. More luxurious quiet cars down below, more noisy, less expensive cars up above. Now, when it comes to handling, this is a pretty heavy vehicle, and it's relatively, well, it's pretty softly sprung. And so even with these large wheels and tires, there's a lot of body roll, and because the suspension's softly sprung, there's not a lot of control over these big heavy wheels and tires. So when you go over undulations and bumps, anything that disrupts your motion, this chassis gets unsettled pretty easily. And there isn't a lot of, well, precision in the steering, in my opinion. I have found during my week with it that it just, everything that you tell the chassis to do, it sort of lags to keep up with. And I found myself constantly trying to correct steering, that was a cattle guard, during my week with it. It's just not a very precise chassis. It feels like it's just sort of behind the curve. It's not right up to speed with what's going on with the vehicle. You're constantly, there's just a disconnect going on, and it's not really the driving experience that you might think you'd get looking at this thing. This chassis gets 4 out of 5 stars. What's under the hood of the Telluride is an engine that's actually been in the Hyundai Kia lineup for, well, close to 20 years. And even though it is a pretty old engine, long in tooth some might say, it has had quite a few upgrades along the way, like direct fuel injection. Here it has all-wheel drive, an 8-speed automatic transmission, and it's rated at 291 horsepower and 262 pound-feet of torque. And that does sound like quite a lot, but this is a pretty heavy vehicle, right around 4,500 pounds, give or take. So the question I always like to ask right out the gate is, how does it go? So we're going to come to a complete stop. We're literally in the middle of nowhere, and go. It's working. Good response from the pedal right off the line, and 60. So power is adequate, maybe adequate to leisurely. It's right in that range someplace. This transmission does a decent job most of the time of giving you the downshifts when you ask for them. But passing power, this engine really does work to move this vehicle, and its lower torque figure is one of the reasons why it's really trying to get its breath. And so I would kind of wonder what this is like with a load of people and maybe gear going camping, going up a mountain pass. It might work pretty hard. This does have a lot of gas saving features, auto start stop being one of them. Not my favorite. You can turn it off, and you're going to want to, because it's not the best system out there. It's just kind of clunky, and it's not very refined. It's annoying, to be honest. Now, EPA rating here is 18 city, 24 highway, and 21 combined. In my week with it, I got like 16. So it's kind of thirsty because it's working hard. And on top of that, it's working hard, and so it's kind of thrashy at times. It's a noisy motor, and it's a clunky powertrain, and its response around town when you go to pull out of a parking lot or go, there's a little bit of a lag there, much like the chassis. This engine, this powertrain, gets 3 out of 5 stars. At the beginning of the video, I said this thing was baller. And it is, but a lot of people don't really know what that means, or they might take it the wrong way. Let's just say it's rock star. A lot of people know what that means, right? It's good looking, it's got swagger, it's got confidence, it's the front man for the group. And that, in addition to all of the features for the money, the room, the space, and everything else that it brings with it, that's what's attracting all of the people to the showroom to buy this thing. And a lot of people are paying over a sticker for these things, a lot. I mean, Kia dealers are getting banked for these vehicles. But having test driven it, and this is the third one I've test driven, you know, my partner put it perfect. This thing might look rock star, but it kind of drives like a groupie. The driving experience and the living with it every day experience doesn't quite match what it's presenting when you walk up to it from the curb, at least in my opinion. And so, you know, it's worth taking a test drive in this thing if you're interested in it, because you know, your expectations and what it actually offers in the way of a driving experience might be two different things. But not for everybody, but for somebody like myself, and I consider myself a driving enthusiast, to say it properly, meh. Anyway, that said, we're talking about value here, what you get for the money. At $54,000 fully loaded, we're almost near the top of what you can spend here. This does have a lot of stuff. It's got a great interior. It's got a lot of features. The quality's reasonably good. And the warranty on this thing, 5 years, 60,000 miles, bumper to bumper, better than most of the competitors out there. 10 years, 100,000 miles powertrain, better than anybody in the market. I mean, you can't really beat that. And so even if you're down in the 30s all the way up to the 50s, I think this is a great value, in spite of the fact that it's not the most exciting, energetic driving experience, right? It's a family car. It's a big station wagon. That's what this is. So for a big station wagon, this has a great value. I put that at 5 out of 5 stars. When you put that in with everything we've already talked about, we're at 4 out of 5 stars for the review. Yeah, so there you go. It would be down in the 3 or 3.5 range if not for the fact that this thing's just a great value. So but not over MSRP. Don't do that. Don't do that. Nothing's worth over MSRP, and this certainly is not. So I know a lot of you out there are doing that. Don't. Anyway, if you like what we do, follow us on social media. We do a lot of stuff there that we don't do videos on. You can also see our latest video right there, but best yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel right down there on that big round button. Either way, stay tuned.